So this past weekend, um, well, I suppose it will have been 2 weekends ago by the time this video airs. I went to see a play, Into the Woods, performed at the Pulse Opera House in the town of Warren, Indiana, not too far from my own hometown. And boy, do I have some thoughts. This is the first time I've ever seen Into the Woods. And while you might think a small town in Indiana is not the ideal venue, you'd be wrong, because it was one of the better plays I've ever seen anywhere, possessing a cast of incredibly talented actors who impressed me more often than not. But it was a brilliant production altogether, with some incredible performances all around, even from side characters who typically are overlooked. I'm here to talk to you more about the story itself. As I said, I was not familiar with Into the Woods going in, so I didn't know what to expect really. I think it's safe to say that the premise is sort of a lie, right? It's supposedly about these fairy tale characters getting lost in the forest and going on these crazy adventures, trying to undo the magic of an evil witch. So you've got Cinderella, Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, Jack and the Beanstalk, and these new characters. Well, sort of new and sort of not new. It's a whole thing, but but you've got these characters, the baker and the baker's wife, referred to henceforth as the baker and the baker's wife, respectively, and they are trying to have a baby, and failing because a witch placed a curse on them. But here's the rub. I'd argue that the play is not about these characters, any of these characters, not really. Um, I'd argue that the main character of the play is the witch herself. She is the one, I'd argue, who undergoes the most character development, though everyone gets their fair share of that in the end. Um, it's a hard story to explain, and uh, it's a harder story to analyze, but I'll give it a go. Uh, so the witch cursed the baker because the baker's father stole food from her garden, including these magic beans, which in turn cursed the witch, turning her into a witch, into like this old, ugly, warty magical crone. But it gave her magic powers, uh, which allow the witch to bewitch those who wrong her. So she tells the baker and the baker's wife to go and get all these things, these weird items for a potion that she intends to whip up, and she'll remove the curse on them if they do. So the things are a cow as white as milk, a cape as red as blood, hair as yellow as corn, and slippers as pure as gold. So, in other words, they want Jack's cow from Jack and the Beanstalk. They want Red Riding Hood's hood, Cinderella's slippers, and okay, so it's sort of Rapunzel's hair, but not actually Rapunzel's hair. Um, we'll get to that because see, the witch when she cursed the baker's father, back when the baker was a boy, she also stole the baker's father's daughter, otherwise known as the baker's sister. But it's sort of explained in a roundabout way. But the sister, the infant sister, who happens to be Rapunzel. So the witch is raising Rapunzel in a tower, um, and yeah, that. There's a whole storyline off there too. But yeah, shenanigans ensue with that basic plot. You pretty much know the stories, right? How they play out. though they are a lot more accurate to the original fairy tales, right? The wicked stepsisters cut off their toes to fit in the glass slipper. The wolf actually eats Red and Granny, and they have to be cut out of his chest. Um, Rapunzel's prince is eventually blinded by thorns, and Rapunzel herself is exiled by her mother to the desert. Um, thank God they didn't do the accurate version of Sleeping Beauty. Um, the only real change is that the baker, is the one who pays Jack uh, the magic beans for the cow, and he also kills the wolf, taking the role of the woodsman, right, and saving Red, who rewards him with the cloak. The baker's wife winds up uh, getting one of the glass slippers from Cinderella, who happens to be having some doubts about Prince Charming, who seems to be anything but charming in the end, although she marries him anyway. A slight side note is I freaking love that they kind of go for a character assassination of Prince Charming in this. It reminds me so much of Bernard Cornwell's butchery of the character of Sir Lancelot in his Arthurian series, making Lancelot out to be this horrible monster, this villain. Um, I'll talk about those books someday soon. Uh, Believe that. But yeah, Prince Charming in this is a tool. He's this sleazy piece of crap. It turns out, and to be honest, I don't mind. I prefer Flynn Rider and like the guy from Mulan and the Beast. But anyway, uh, the play itself is just bonkers, crazy. The first half is just awesome, amazing. I really can't complain on that front. The first part uh, of the story, right, with the baker's quest for all the items getting resolved when they make the potion by feeding the cow the various ingredients. The cow, by the way, had previously keeled over dead and had to be brought back to life by the witch. Don't worry, that won't come up again. Uh, but the hair they needed for the potion, which the baker's wife took from Rapunzel, doesn't work because the witch is Rapunzel's mother, so adopted mother. She stole the baby. You know, the witch had touched her hair, and she can't have touched any of the ingredients. It's a magical switcheroo thing. So they use in place of hair as yellow as corn, actual corn silk from the corn, which is kind of like hair, and it works. The potion works, and it turns the witch young again, freeing the baker's family of the curse, but also removing the witch's powers. Um, so the next act of the play begins. The second half of the play begins after everything's gone happily ever after. Uh, the play might have ended there, and I'd have been happy. Instead, it kind of goes on. So the giant that Jack kills in his story turns out to have been married, and the wife comes back for revenge. So the giant woman goes stomping around, murdering people left, right, and center. It gets pretty dark pretty fast, um, and everyone's struggling to figure out what to do about this giant. The witch thinks that they should just give her Jack. The witch, of course, is unhappy and sad and alone because her daughter Rapunzel has abandoned her, and she's lost her magic powers, and slowly she's beginning to wonder if being old and warty isn't so bad. Don't worry, that doesn't really come up again either. Randomly, while everyone gets lost in the woods, trying to escape the giant and trying to find their lost family members, and the baker and the baker's wife have kind of taken over this search. They've split up and are running around. They've left, I think it's Riding Hood, to look after their baby. Um, Prince Charming, who is supposed to be killing a giant, by the way, although he's apparently more interested in looking for women to cheat on his wife Cinderella with. uh, he runs into the baker's wife, the happily married woman who just had a baby and also has more important things to do right now. So just looking after her baby and protecting her friends and family from a rampaging giant. Um, well, it turned out that her and Prince Charming make out, and they probably do other stuff, but it's a play, so. But don't ask me why, because I still don't know. Just kind of happens, and then the baker's wife runs off and gets killed by the giant. Uh, Literally right after. So a lot of people actually die in the second act. I think Rapunzel gets killed by the giant. Maybe the prince too. Jack's mother gets killed by in a fight with the kingdom's steward. It's a whole thing, right? It goes surprisingly grimdark, to be honest. And people start arguing over whose fault it is, blaming Jack and blaming the baker, blaming Red for some reason, and everyone's pointing fingers. Eventually everyone points at the witch, who really loses her mind at that. She starts this incredible song about how they're all horrible. Let me remind you, this is a musical. And she explains how they're all liars, how they're all trying to get what they want by any means necessary, not caring whether it hurts people. They're all so nice, and yet they've really ruined everything. All their wishes ended up backfiring in some sort of Prismo monkey's paw situation. And she, in like her fury, she reaches into her pocket and pulls out a handful of beans, magic beans, and throws them all away in a sort of well, if you care about magic beans and chaos and giants so much, you can have them. You can have more of them. Uh, Apparently, that was supposed to have given her her powers back, and she uses magic to go into hiding. I say apparently because that's what the synopsis tells me. Although it was a little unclear for me as to whether or not that's actually what happened. Um, but then the remaining people go on to unite and set a trap for the giant woman, trip her up and kill her, and everyone goes on to live a fairly miserable, happily ever after. What with the baker's wife being dead and pretty much everyone else being dead too, um, right? Like Jack's mother and Riding Hood's grandmother. Um, a lot of people died. It's weird. And the giant woman's dead, who, while she was murdering people and was kind of a villain, she was also portrayed as this incredibly distraught, horribly traumatized woman, seeking vengeance for the death of her husband, which is like, uh, yeah, an oddly relatable motive for a giant. Okay, okay. So I loved the play. I really did. I freaking loved it. I just didn't think too highly about the ending. I love the performances. I love the first act. I like most of the second act. So here's what I would have done differently. Here's what I feel should have happened, personally. Um, the witch threw away the beans, right? So I ask you, if they made such a big point about her being able to bring the dead cow back to life for seemingly no reason, why didn't she bring the other dead people back to life? Right? Her journey has been this whole careful what you wish for. Everyone's journey has been the careful what you wish for philosophy, right? She regretted losing her powers almost instantly. She was distraught at the loss of her daughter, and actually seemed to care about Rapunzel in her own twisted, slightly abusive way. I think it would have been interesting if the witch changed in the end, if she grew. Uh, Perhaps not earning forgiveness for some of the worst things that she'd done, because she did some awful things. But maybe she still strives to do good, to try and make amends. Maybe she learns her lesson. Maybe you're right, she gives up the beans, and it makes her old and withered again, and you know, which she sort of does in the play. But then she goes on to bring Rapunzel back to life, and the baker's wife, and everyone else. and then finally have her bring back the giant woman's husband, right? Then those two are reunited. The witch has learned a lesson, and I think it actually hammers home the core message of careful what you wish for even better, because only by rejecting her first wish of being young again would the witch be able to save the day. See, isn't that kind of better? I mean, I think so. I know the play has been around for a long time, but I think everyone has a right to share their opinions on these things. Only when we make works of art sacred and infallible are we truly lost. I just I honestly thought that my idea wasn't an idea. I just thought that's the way the play was going to end as I was watching it. It seemed obvious. It seemed like Chekhov's resurrection, if you will, and playing into what I believe to be the core themes of the play to begin with. But what do I know? Nothing. That's what I'm like Jon Snow. I know nothing. If you want to hear me rant about more plays, well, you'll probably have to wait a while. But I have videos about other things, books mostly. If you're interested in that, why don't you go ahead and like and subscribe? I mean, seriously, do it. Anyway, that's sort of all I've got for today. Bye.